Thank you, Michael, and thank you, everyone, from the Real Truth About Health Conference. Stephen and John, it's just been such an honor working with you, and thank you for having me back 3 years in a row. You know, you're going to have some of the most amazing speakers over the next 17 days telling you what to eat, but I thought what I would do is show you how to make it. And so I have a new book coming out with over 150 plant-exclusive, vegan, whole food recipes sweetened naturally with fruit. And I am going to attempt to do 15 recipes today. You don't need to take notes because we created a beautiful PDF, too many words to put in YouTube show notes. So if you just email help@chefaj.com, it would be our pleasure to email you this beautiful PDF with all of the recipes. And that way I can just go a little bit quickly, or is that a word, quickly or more quickly, rather than saying the amounts of each one. What's really nice about this book is every recipe has a photo, and we're going to be making this one as part of our 15. I chose recipes that not only were some of my personal favorites, but recipes also that anyone with a reasonable amount of kitchen fitness could make, and also that didn't take too long for the cooking or the cooling time. And that way I can get you a breadth and depth of different recipes. Some are very rich, meaning they're higher in calorie density, higher in fat, always coming from things like nuts and seeds rather than oils. Some are low fat, but none of them have any processed sugar. None of them have oil. None of them have salt. And I think today, I don't think any of them even have any flour. So the first recipe I'm going to make is called sweet cornbread muffins. Now, if you're eating a lot of sugar, real or fake, some of these recipes may not taste sweet enough for you at first. So that's why we're going to do some that are very sweet, some that are subtly sweet. But I can give you tips and tricks on how to make things taste sweeter. And during the last half hour of this presentation, I'll be going to my computer to answer any questions you have. So I've already preheated my oven. And what I'm going to do is measure my ingredients in the blender. See, I love not having to wash a lot of dishes. And what I love about these high-powered blenders is there's actually a measuring cup. It's scored on it. So I don't have to put things in one cup to put it in another cup. One of the secrets really to cooking in general, healthy cooking or not, is to do a technique that we learned the first day in culinary school called mise en place. You can't see my whole kitchen, but every recipe is set up and the amounts are already measured. And I do that even if I'm not doing a presentation, because it makes it go much more quickly than running to the cabinet and the cover and the refrigerator looking for all your ingredients. And I've done that with all 15 recipes, which is why I think I'm going to be able to get them all done in this time. So for the sweet cornbread muffins, I already have, if you wouldn't mind lowering the camera, in my blender some unsweetened apple juice, which you can certainly make yourself or just buy an organic brand of apple juice at regular markets. Now, the only sweetener I use is dates. And usually I use them whole. And you're going to see a couple of demonstrations of how I use them whole. Sometimes I make them into a paste, which I'm going to show you how. But in certain recipes, I use date syrup. This is the brand I prefer because it's organic and it's one ingredient. Now, over 20 years ago, before I gave up processed sugar, or when I gave up processed sugar, which was July 6, 2003, I used to make my own date syrup. And in my first book on processed, I even had a recipe, but it's so labor intensive. You have to blend and boil and reduce. And now you can buy date syrup at Walmart. And by the way, I know people watching this live in all different parts of the world in the United States. One of the things that little beep means my oven's preheated. I make sure that even if I buy my ingredients from stores near me, like Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or Sprouts or even Costco, every ingredient that I use in every cooking demonstration, it can be purchased at Walmart and mostly also at the 99-cent store. So I try not to use any special ingredients. But like I say, date syrup, not only available on Amazon or on the company website with a Chef AJ code for 10% off, readily available at Walmart. And most Walmarts are open till midnight if you run out of date syrup. Comes in different sizes. Actually, it comes in a gallon size. I'm out of that one, so I'm just going to take it and I'm going to measure it because I love that I can just pour it in and go up to the line with what I need. Now, I'm only using a half a cup, which is actually 8 tablespoons or 24 teaspoons, which means that each muffin is only going to have 2 teaspoons of sweetener in it. I've already have measured out my organic medium grind cornmeal and my gluten-free rolled oats, and they're going right in the blender. My baking powder and baking soda, which if you want, you can get sodium-free. I recommend at least getting them aluminum-free. And my apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar activates the baking powder and baking soda so that you can get things to rise without having to use eggs. I know nowadays they have a vegan egg that you can use, and there's flax eggs. But remember, I've been doing this for 47 years. So I had to figure out how to do it before all these newfangled, if you will, products were invented. So I'm just going to blend in the blender for just a couple of seconds. But I forgot one ingredient, and I'll go get it right now, the applesauce. That's the one thing I forgot to measure in advance. And I knew because I make this recipe all the time. I moved from Southern California to Northern California to be part of a huge vegan community. There's like 8,000 of us in this meetup group, and we get together all the time for potlucks. And this is one of their favorite recipes. We serve it not just as a sweet recipe, but often with vegan chilies. And I knew that something was missing because of how thick it was. So there we have a half a cup of an unsweetened applesauce. I actually have 2 recipes, actually 3 in the book to make your own applesauce, which is actually as easy as putting apples in a blender without the core, of course. Applesauce is one of the many wonderful substitutes for oil in baking recipes. Things like applesauce can give moisture, prune puree, pumpkin puree, sweet potatoes, bananas, tofu. These are all things that make things moist without oil. And so by using a blender, all I have to do now is pour it in. So I don't have to take a scoop and make that another thing that I have to wash. I don't worry if each one is perfect. If you are a perfectionist, you can just get a half a cup of measure and get each one to be exactly the same. We love to eat these as dessert. For us, they're sweet enough. If you need them sweeter, they're great to be served with a fruit sweetened jam. I've got recipes in the book for them, but it is so widely available now because so many people, whether they're vegan or not, are trying to avoid refined sugar. And that doesn't just mean white sugar. That means honey, agave, maple syrup, barley malt, rice syrup, even the 0 calories or fake sugars like stevia, erythritol, xylitol, which I think your last speaker, Kim Murphy, did a good job explaining why those are actually less healthy than refined sugar, which is not healthy. I like to use the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the fruit. And that's how I've been doing this for over 20 years. I used to weigh 70 pounds more than I weigh now. And part of the reason that I've been able to lose this weight and keep it off was not eating processed food. So I don't know why that made 11 today. It made 12 yesterday. That's okay. This is a wonderful tool that you can use when you're cooking without oil. These are silicone bakeware. They're oven safe to 450 degrees. I kind of go like this. I call it the drop and plop. And these are so easy to clean and nothing sticks because it pops out. Now, nothing sticks if you let it cool. You have to let baked goods cool, whether they're vegan or not. I find people tend to rush baking. That's why we're only doing certain recipes that don't have long baking times. You need to let things cool before you take them out of the pan. So I'm going to go put this in the oven. I'll be right back. And through the magic of television, they're ready. This is the batch that I made last night. Now, you probably say, why are they so dark? They're cornbread muffins. The reason they're dark is because I use date syrup. Date syrup is not translucent like agave or maple syrup. If that bothers you, what you can do is use whole dates and blend them in, but I just find it's so much easier to just do it this way. So these are wonderful with a bowl of chili as a on-the-go breakfast. And I'll show you the next batch when it's done, and we'll get on to the second recipe. We're kind of going to go from like less sweet to more decadent. The next recipe is called apple pie rice pudding. I created this recipe when I had leftover rice. And usually I do have leftover rice, but I also want to show you that you can use some convenience tools, ideas, that you don't always have to cook rice. So at least where I live, all the stores, even the regular grocery stores, have frozen organic rice, both brown and white, in microwavable packages that take 3 minutes to microwave. And so today I'm using white, but if you don't eat white rice, that's okay. You can use brown rice. You probably could use any whole grain, like even quinoa if you wanted. The thing is you just need the right amount, which is 4 cups. And so what would apple pie rice pudding be without apple? So the thing is I've always liked rice pudding. Even as a kid, it was available. I grew up like going to delis like Nate and Al's in Beverly Hills. And that was one of the few desserts they had on the menu. But when you make rice pudding, at least on the stove, you gotta cook it. But if you do things in the Instant Pot, you can set it and forget it. So the apple I'm using is called the Envy apple because it's my favorite apple. It's the envy of all apples, and I just think it's the most delicious apple. But you could use any apple you wanted. I wouldn't recommend using green apples in some of these desserts, except for maybe like a caramel apple because they're really kind of tart. So your dessert, when you're using fruit, is only going to be as sweet as your fruit. So for example, a ripe banana is going to be sweeter than a non-ripe banana, but apples tend to be pretty consistently sweet if you get a brand that you like. So I love tools that make things easier. And so a lot of people are familiar with the apple cutter that cuts into 8 slices. I prefer this one. It cuts into 16 slices. Either I'm short or the counter is too low, and then have a little piece on the end that you just kind of poke it out like that. When I eat an apple, I do it that way because I tend to enjoy it more. And then I have this really cool tool called the Vidalia Chop Wizard. And what I do is I am just cutting it into little pieces. You can use this tool for onion. You can use it for zucchini. I love this tool. It's about $20 on Amazon. If you still have a Bed Bath & Beyond near you that takes a coupon, this is where I originally got it. It's a fun tool to use. And also what's really neat about it is, again, it's a measuring cup, because I'm always being mindful, since I'm the one that has to do the dishes here, of using less equipment as possible. I do the same thing with recipes. I try to create the taste and texture I'm going for with as few ingredients as possible, and ingredients that are available in most places. So what's really cool is this measuring cup tells me I have the right amount. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and put this. And I love that it's even with the best knife skills. I mean, look how beautiful this is. You could probably use a food processor to do this, but I love this. And this grate comes in 3 different sizes, this being the smallest one. So we're going to walk over to the pressure cooker, and we are going to place the ingredients in the pressure cooker. This is a 3-quart Instant Pot. You can use a bigger one if you have it, a 6-quart, an 8-quart, or a 10-quart, but this is the one that we have on the counter all the time because it's small. So I'm going to put my ingredients in. And like I said, all I did was microwave this rice, but you don't have to do that. You can always make the rice from scratch. So we're going to add that to the pressure cooker. The pressure cooker already has my liquids in it, which is a non-dairy unsweetened milk. Now, if this doesn't taste sweet enough for you, the ways you can sweeten it is by adding dates or date syrup, or instead of taking 3 cups of your favorite non-dairy milk, maybe take 1 cup of unsweetened apple juice with 2 cups of non-dairy milk. If you used all apple juice, I think it might be too sweet. But again, the longer you're off sweets, traditional sweets, the more you appreciate the subtle taste and the sweetness in fruit. And so I'm going to take all my beautiful apples and put them in here. What's nice about this is delicious hot when you first make it. We're having our monthly potluck Sunday. So I'll be making something like this. It's delicious cold. It's delicious at room temperature. And also when things are done, I'll also give you some plating techniques that I love. So I'm going to put in some yellow raisins. I just like the taste of yellow raisins better than the dark ones. The dark ones taste too pruny to me. These just taste like little bursts of sweetness. And what's fun about yellow raisins is you don't know to see them in there. So it's like you get this little surprise. I've also used currants in this as well. Or if you don't eat dried fruit, you can omit it entirely. So I'm going to add that to my pressure cooker. I love pressure cooking because you just throw everything in and push a button. I don't really do fancy recipes except maybe twice a year for my husband's birthday and Thanksgiving. My spices are cinnamon and vanilla powder, which I'll talk about throughout this demo. I always say get the biggest and best you can afford in terms of ingredients and equipment. I love the spices at Local Spicery. It's a local spice shop. They sell online. It's small batch, in glass, non-irridated. 2 free samples with my name. I'm not trying to market it. It's just very, very good spices. But apple spice, pie spice, things like pumpkin pie spice, you can make your own. There's recipes if you just Google it with cinnamon, nutmeg, things like this. But I do like to put my pennies towards really quality products, especially when it comes to dessert, because things like vanilla powder, meaning vanilla bean powder, really do make a taste difference, in my opinion, than using imitation vanilla or vanilla extract. And so all we do is we put the pressure cooker on, and then we're going to put on 5 minutes. This is always preset to 5 minutes because it just is, because that's the number that we use the most. So set it, forget it, and we're on to the 3rd recipe. If you didn't have that little beep for the pressure cooker is just saying, is this correct, lady? Yeah, it's correct. If you didn't have a pressure cooker, you could make this just by cooking it on the stove. I would imagine it would take probably 20 minutes. You could probably put all the ingredients in a slow cooker. It would probably take 3 or 4 hours that way. You know, especially if you're new to eating a plant-based diet, one of the easiest ways I think to continue to do it is to get things like a pressure cooker or an Instant Pot, because it helps you get healthy food ready quickly. Here I'm using it for dessert, but we use it for so many reasons. To steam our morning greens, to make soups, stews, chili. You can also make beans in no time. Rice, you can make steel cut oat in 5 minutes. Oat groats in 5 minutes. Artichokes in 7 minutes. Corn on the cob in 0 minutes. So it's pretty cool. My book. Okay. Ooh, recipe number 3. One of the things you often get asked as a chef is, what's your favorite recipe? And a lot of chefs say, well, that's like asking me what my favorite kid is. But like, be honest, you probably have a favorite kid, even if you're not going to say which one it is. This next one, 2 of today I'm going to say are my favorite. And I love this recipe for many reasons, mainly because it tastes good, but also because how easy it is to make. This recipe came about when I moved from Southern California to Northern California. We had a farewell party, and 2 of the guests coming from Los Angeles, they got lost, and I didn't think they were coming. And since we were moving in 2 days, all the food from the party went home with the guests. So the party was supposed to go till 5. They showed up at like 10 to 5, and there was no more food because everybody had left. And so I quickly whipped this recipe together, and it since has become one of my favorites. It's called the rustic fruit tart. Going to grab my ingredients. So the first thing we're going to do is make the tart crust. Now the tart crust cooks for about 5 minutes, but the truth is, during the party, when I made this, I didn't cook it because I needed to get them something healthy to eat quickly. So you don't have to cook it, but I find if you want to keep the crusts for a long time, if you cook them just for about 5 minutes, they dry out enough so that you can keep a bunch of them for whenever you have company at the last minute. So here I'm using a food processor. This is the Breville Sous Chef. It's my favorite because I always say get the biggest and best you can afford. And this is the most powerful and best one I've ever used. But there's other good food processors too, the RoboCoupe, the Cuisinart. But I feel like the bigger, the better when it comes to equipment, even if you're just one person. Remember, you can always do a smaller recipe in a bigger piece of equipment. You can't do a big recipe in a smaller. So we are using the S blade. It comes with many blades, but the most common blade, at least for desserts, is the S blade. And if you wonder why it looked a little dirty, it's because I pre-made some of these to show you so they'd be done. So pre-measured, I have my rolled oats. I always use gluten-free. And I also have my cinnamon and my vanilla bean powder. Vanilla bean powder is different than vanilla powder, which is white and processed with dextrose, and it's just not healthy. This is just the pure vanilla bean. It's just more cost effective than actually using a vanilla bean for every single recipe. You can get that many places, Amazon, local spicery, and you can even omit it. It's fine. I mean, sometimes I do, but I would rather have no vanilla than use extract. Also, extract is liquid and it affects the consistency of some of these desserts. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to whir this around in the food processor until it becomes kind of like a breadcrumb consistency. You can go. Now you could say, well, why can't I use oat flour? You certainly could. I like things to have a little bit of a toothsome texture, to be a little bit less processed. Also, oat flour is merely oats that have been ground into a flour. So why not just do it yourself in your high-powered blender and save a few pennies? So then I'm going to add my dates. So I love dates. Dates are nature's candy. They come in so many varieties. And if you've never had them, I really encourage you to try them. Because I used to be, like I said, 70 pounds heavier, an obese sugar addict. I used to start every morning with how many ounces was it? A 32-ounce Coke Slurpee? I don't remember the exact, but whatever the size was at the time before they were having the 256-ounce ones. With 8 pumps of vanilla syrup, I would drink regular Dr. Pepper all day long. And if it weren't for things like dates, I don't think I would ever have kicked the refined sugar habits, because I think of them as you don't have to eat them, but they were a great transition food to get off of sugar. Because when you think about it, well, first of all, in terms of caloric density, sugar is 1,800 calories per pound. There's no fiber, there's no nutrients. Dates are still caloric. I mean, let's face it, they're about 1,300 calories per pound. But they're a whole food. They have fiber, water, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, micronutrients. And when you eat them, you will feel some fullness, some satiety. You can eat sugar all day and never feel full. And so dates are amazing. All fruit is, but dates particularly in desserts, because they tend to be neutral. I mean, there's other dried fruits like raisins and apricots, cherries, figs. They're good, but they have a more distinct taste, whereas dates just taste sweet to me. I tend to use the Deglet Nor dates because I use so many, and this is the most cost-effective I found, especially at Costco if you have them. This is $5.99 for 2.5 pounds. That's about $2.39 a pound. Costco also sells medjool dates, but these are much more expensive. A pound and a half is $12. And so I will be using some medjool dates. If you're going to eat a date as a dessert or snack, then of course I recommend the medjool. Actually, I recommend the bari the most. Those are even more expensive. But for the recipe purposes, I don't think it makes much difference. And I actually prefer the Deglet Nor because they tend to be a little bit drier, and the medjools sometimes make my crusts a little bit too wet. So I've already measured these dates out in advance, and I'm placing them in my food processor with the oats. And this could take about a minute or two, because what I'm looking for is for a ball to form, for the food processor to slow down. That's why I love doing hands-on cooking the most. When possible, I go to a place called Rancho La Puerta, where you can join me if you want to learn hands-on cooking. And I'm going to be going to the Stanford Inn to teach it, because then I can tell you to feel it, to what it's supposed to feel like. But basically what I'm trying to do is make kind of a ball so that everything forms together, because we're also going to be doing this in the next recipe, which is the orange chocolate mousse torte. So this is basically a technique where you take either a grain or a nut plus a date to make some kind of a crust. When you think about a pie crust in the traditional world, it's flour. Usually it's pretty much always white flour. It's either margarine or butter or lard. It's sugar, it's salt. And really, do pie crusts without the filling taste very good? Do people go around eating pie crusts? I like my crusts to taste as good as the pie. And this crust actually tastes like a snickerdoodle cookie. So if you didn't like the filling, you could just eat these as giant snickerdoodles. So this is going to run for a minute. I won't talk when the machine is on, and you will see, because we'll have the camera facing towards it, that it will start to slow down. That's it. I can tell you exactly how long that was. That was, believe it or not, that was 39 seconds, because my food processor has a timer on it. So when it's done, what we're going to do is to take our baking mat. I love to use these permanent silicone baking mats, because as wonderful as parchment paper is, it's really not environmentally friendly because you can only use it once. Yes, this will eventually discolor a bit, but this is fantastic. What I like about it more than the traditional silpat or silicone mat is it has firm sides, so it stays stable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and just dump it on my mat for now. And I'm going to show you what to do in just a second. So you can take a pie tin. Let me see if I have it to show you. You can take something like this and make a fluted pie tart, and it would be very beautiful. But one thing I've learned is a lot of people say they don't want dessert, but then when it's an individual dessert, they all of a sudden want it. There's something really nice about having individual desserts that are plated for you that you don't have to cut, and it makes it a lot easier. So what you can do if you were using the pie pan is you press it out. But what I like to do is I generally do 4 with this size recipe. You can do 6 and they would be smaller. If you want it to be this size, it would be 4. And, you could be perfect if you want. You can get a measuring cup or a food scale. I'm not interested in perfection. I've lived my life by the motto that done is more profitable than perfect. So I'm going to do is just roll these in a little ball. Now you can eat these raw. These don't have to be cooked, but they do have a little bit of stickiness in it that I want to get rid of, which is why I do like to bake them for 5 minutes. So this one's bigger, so you can rob Peter to pay Paul if you want them perfect, but they don't have to be. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press them down to make a circle. And again, if you're somebody that wants them absolutely perfect, there are molds that you can get to make them absolutely perfect, but it's called a rustic fruit tart because I actually like the irregularity. I like it to look homemade. But if you are a person that wants it to be, more like a French pastry and perfect, then you want to get yourself a miniature fluted tart and do it that way. And then it will be perfect. But again, once I get the berries in here, you're going to see any kind of crusts that maybe didn't come out perfect. It's going to be covered by the berries. So and I keep turning it over to get the stickiness to not stick. So I'm just trying to make like a big pancake and spread it out. The bigger I spread it out, the more surface area I have to fill it. And by the way, we're going to be filling this with berries, but there's no reason you couldn't fill it with other things. Like, for example, we're going to be making a butterscotch pudding later. That would be absolutely delicious in here. It doesn't have to be berries, but berries are some of my favorite fruit, especially strawberries. But I'm not using strawberries because we're going to use that in a different recipe. We're going to use raspberries and blueberries because they're so beautiful. So after you get them pressed out, you want to build the lip. And this is a fun thing to get kids involved in because, they can't cut themselves. They could be really fun. And cooking is a fun thing because, if you do make a mistake, you get to eat your mistake. And my motto, which was the motto of my culinary school, is it's not what you can make, it's what you can fix. And some of my best recipes have come from mistakes. There's very few things you can't fix in cooking. I would say if you put too much salt, that could be hard to fix, but I don't eat any salt, so that doesn't happen. I don't say don't eat any salt. I don't cook with salt. What I'm kind of doing is I'm just kind of pushing the middle to get that nice little kind of bird's nest in there. And obviously too much hot pepper, those kind of things are hard to fix without making another whole batch to dilute it. But so many other things, can be fixed. And some of the best recipes actually have come from mistakes. If you remember that Reese's peanut butter commercial, you got chocolate on my peanut butter. You got peanut butter on my chocolate. Well, that's why I love hands-on cooking, because we have the chance to be creative and create recipes together when we do that. But there's unfortunately no culinary schools where I live now. So I got to go to Mexico and other places in order to do my passion, which is to teach cooking. So there we've got some nice little circles, and then we got 2 more to do. And I have gotten 6 out of these. I would not do 8. You could do 8. The more you do, the more work you have to do. And so what we're going to do, I have to bake these after the muffins come out, is we're going to macerate berries. Now, again, you can serve this like this, but by cooking it just for that 5 minutes, it gives it a nice little firmness and dryness that I actually prefer, unless you're going to eat it right now. If you were a raw foodist, then you wouldn't cook it, because I'm told by my friend Lissa Maris of Raw Food Romance that you now can get sprouted raw oats, which means when she comes visit me in May, she could eat this recipe. And for her, what I could do is dehydrate it. So a lot of people think, and it's getting warm in here. Can we lower the temperature? Yeah, I've got a lot of lights going on. So macerate, a lot of people have heard the word macerated berries. They might have seen it on a restaurant menu, vanilla ice cream with macerated berries. So they think it has sugar. Well, in general, berries are macerated in a simple syrup with sugar, but the word macerate literally just means to soften. And so you can macerate in anything. Just wash my hands. Did you hear that I was hot? Okay. Hello, just washing my hands. Okay. So what we're going to do, and I probably should have done this at the start of the recipe, is we're going to take our berries. Here I have raspberries and blueberries, and I'm going to macerate them in 1 to 2 tablespoons of any liquid. I mean, people that drink alcohol might macerate them in alcohol. You can even use water to macerate. You could use a little unsweetened fruit juice like orange juice or really any flavor, apple juice. What I like to macerate in is balsamic vinegar, a good quality reduced balsamic vinegar, not the regular kind at the salad bar. It's very sour with 6% acidity. I like to use brands like California Balsamic, which is 6% acidity. There's no sugar in it. It's reduced, meaning it's cooked and cooked and cooked, so it's thick and syrupy. I also use these for salad dressings, and I let the flavor of vinegar be informed by what the fruit is. And so this is blueberry, and so I'm not even going to measure. Well, I'll measure just to see how much I really use. I'll start with 1 tablespoon. Remember, you can always add, you can't take away. And the reason I'm macerating is because when things are macerated, what happens, these berries get soft and they get almost like a cooked texture. If you've ever used frozen fruit, in which you are going to use in a recipe, you know how much softer and liquidy it is. I guess you could use frozen fruit, but then it doesn't have any kind of firmness or bite. And that was exactly 1 tablespoon. So you don't need a lot. If every cup of fruit, maybe 1 tablespoon. And so we should have done this before so that I could show you how they really do soften. But then what I do is I take them and then I put them into my cooked crust. Okay. Oh, this is so good. I don't use a fork. I just pick it up and eat it. And probably my favorite flavor is strawberry, but I've used peaches in here. I have used mango. I've even used, when I haven't had any fresh berries, canned, drained, unsweetened pineapple. And then we always want to take a piece of mint, pretty mint for a garnish. And you can really have this ready in no time. And I'm telling you, this is such an elegant, and it's an absolutely delicious dessert. This would probably cost like, I don't know, $7.99 in a restaurant. We're going to be making a raspberry coulis later. And so once you had that, you could drizzle that over this. But I'll tell you, people love this recipe, even if they are still eating sugar, because it's basically fruit. You could eat this for breakfast, because think about it. A lot of people eat fruit and oats for breakfast. Well, hello, wouldn't you rather have that? So there we have one of my very favorite recipes in the book, rustic fruit tart. Okay, 3 down, only a dozen more to go. All right, so now we're going to make the orange. Oh, no, we're going to make this first. We're going to do the cinnamon vanilla bliss balls. And I'm not going to clean my food processor because there's very similar profile of ingredients. And also, if I don't have a second container for this, like I do my blender, and if I were to wash this now, there's still going to be a little bit of liquid in it, no matter how good I dry it. And then when I process things like oats or grains, what's going to happen is it's going to become too pasty, and I don't want that. But I learned a trick from my sous chef, Rebecca. When that happens now in the future, go get your blow dryer, and then you can get every little bit of water out. So this recipe was created. Oh, I was going to show you. I'll show it to you later. I want to show you how to make a strawberry fan. This would look beautiful also on top of the pie, but we'll show you when we get to the strawberry recipe. So this recipe was created while I was guest chefing at Rancho La Puerta. Because what was happening is we always make everything from scratch there. They have a huge organic garden, and basically it's farm to table. Like when you do my cooking class there, you basically just walk out in the garden, you pick everything, and then we cook it for dinner. So we even make our own almond milk, which is very easy to make. There's so many recipes in my book for that. But what happens is when you make almond milk from scratch, you have some leftover pulp, which some people actually give to their pets. Some people dehydrate it and make almond flour, but like they were just throwing it away. And I'm like, no, you can't throw it away. Well, you can, but I would prefer you didn't. So we came up with this recipe, but then I realized I don't really make my own almond milk anymore because I really don't drink plant milk as a beverage. I mean, sometimes it'll be in a soup. When I say a cream soup, a soup that I need to put a cup in. So I don't do it anymore, but I loved this recipe. So you don't have to have almond pulp, but you can. You just have to have almonds. And the truth is, pretty much any nut is interchangeable in recipes with nuts, and nuts and oats are often interchangeable too. If you're somebody that's doing like a more Dr. McDougall or Dr. Esselstyn diet where you want lower caloric density, anytime you see nuts in some of my recipes, you can substitute oats because oats are still pretty high in fat for a grain, about 20%, and you still have this wonderful mouthfeel like you'll experience if you make the rustic fruit tart crust, but nuts have an incredible mouthfeel because they're like 3,200 calories per pound and they're like delicious. That beep was the muffins, but we're going to leave them set because the biggest mistake people make is taking them out too early. But I'm going to show you how easy it is to get them out of there. I actually didn't have quite enough almonds, so I mixed almonds and pecans. That's fine. You could do all pecans. You could do all cashews. You probably could do seeds. Nuts have a little bit more richness than seeds. If you're ever familiar with a confection that is now available everywhere from Costco to even the 99-cent store called the Lara Bar, I met her in 2003 after I got out of culinary school. She ended up selling her company for millions to General Foods with this basic idea: nut and date. Seed and date, and now they come in all different flavors, but you can make your own and it's really quick. And this would be another recipe you could make if company shows up at the last minute. So when I use nuts or seeds, I'm always using raw and unsalted. So that's important, at least for dessert recipes. And I'm just going to place this in the food processor with my spices, which is a really good quality cassia cinnamon. This is from Local Spicery. I like the cassia cinnamon because remember, I'm not using sugar, and this actually tastes like it has sugar in it, and my pure vanilla bean powder. So I'm placing them in the food processor, and I'm just going to grind this into a breadcrumb-like consistency. That was 9 seconds. It doesn't have to be perfect. I actually like a little bit of texture. And then I'm going to take my pitted dates and place them in there. Oh, wow. Can you believe it? The rice pudding's already ready. We're only on episode. We're already on recipe number 4. So I'm going to process these like we did the last recipe. When it starts to slow down, what you're going to do is you're going to check for what I call the break point. So if I can smush it together like this, but then break it in half, it's ready, but it kind of crumbled. So it just needs a few more seconds to be perfect. We'll try that again. This is why hands-on cooking can be so useful, so they can feel it. So again, I'm pushing it together in a ball. If you go too far, you start releasing all of the oil from the nuts, and then it gets kind of oily. So this looks perfect because I can roll it in a ball, but if I want to break it in half, I've got a break point. And so now what I do is I'm going to just take it and take the ingredients and put them in a bowl. Now, this could be a crust. This could totally be a crust for that pie we just did. It would be a lot richer because it has nuts instead of oats. But why couldn't this be the pie crust? I don't see why it couldn't. So, because we're not going to take the time right now to roll every single one into a ball, but we'd be here a little bit longer than you probably want to be here. So what you can do is, I forgot to buy the pretty little foil papers at Michael's, so it looks wonderful to present them that way. You can get cookie scoops in different sizes and roll them that way. But I've always been the kind of person that wants to roll my own, so I usually just, after you have jobs like where you're making 400, you don't even need a scoop. You literally know exactly what size to make, and then you can pop them into your mouth. Now, you can roll these in something. So I probably wouldn't roll them in cocoa powder with this flavor profile, but you could roll them in like hemp seeds, which would be pretty. Maybe not so much coconut, but you could roll in a little bit of cinnamon, but you really don't have to roll these at all. I like to refrigerate these or freeze these, but this is one of the easiest things you can make. You can vary the nut. You could vary the dried fruit too, but this just combination of just simple almonds, cinnamon, and vanilla is really unparalleled. And people tend to really, really love these. I call them cinnamon vanilla bliss balls. Really easy to make. So that was recipe number 5, I believe. And now we're going to go on to the orange chocolate mousse torte. I need another kitchen for my kitchen. So, and if you have questions, write them down. I'm happy to answer them at the end. And also, I do a daily show on YouTube every day at 11 a.m. Pacific time, sometimes at 9 a.m. Called Chef AJ Live. I've done almost 2,000 episodes since the pandemic began, but I'm live every day. So you can always type me something in the chat. I'm happy to answer. This next recipe was the first recipe that I created out of culinary school, which was almost, gosh, over 20 years ago. And when I worked as a pastry chef, the executive pastry chef at Sante Restaurant in Los Angeles, this was a recipe that was on the menu. It's a raw recipe because raw food was very, very popular in the early 2000s in LA. And this was one of the best-selling recipes at the restaurant. In all the recipes in Sweet Indulgence, all the recipes that I cooked when I was pastry chef that were top secret, like the frozen peanut butter cheesecake and things like that, they're all in the book. And if you pre-order it, you get over $1,000 worth of bonuses when it comes out if you save your receipt. Okay, so let me bring the ingredients over. The thing is yes, I'm a chef. I've been a chef a while and maybe I'm fast, but I promise you, none of these recipes are that difficult. And I try not to put difficult recipes in my book because my training as a chef was as a culinary instructor to the blind at the Braille Institute. And if I tested all my recipes on them, so they could do it, you can do it. So the first thing we need is a springform pan. You can use a different pan if you want, but for things that like this, like torts and cheesecakes, I find it not only a presentational thing, but it's just a lot easier. So springform pans now come in almost every shape and size. I've seen hearts, rectangles, you name it, huge. Usually they're round, and this one was $7.99 at a local like a restaurant supply store. This one was a little bit more on Amazon because it has a glass bottom and a silicone ring, but mostly they're about 9 inches. They could be 8. They could come in all different sizes. You can get little ones. So what's neat about them is that when you stick them in the freezer and then the ring comes off, and then you have this to serve on. So again, remember, I don't like to do dishes. So one of the things I do, and you don't have to do this, is if you want, you can take a piece of parchment paper. You have to lower it. And you place it on the bottom. And so that when you put the ring on, now not only will it not stick, but it won't anyway, is now I have one less thing to wash. So I have my base. So the first thing I'm going to do is make my crust. And remember, you can substitute a different nut or seed for a nut. Just make sure it's not roasted and it's unsalted. Or you can substitute oats, or you can do a combination of nut and oat. But I tend, when I'm using nuts, to use the walnut the most, because those that feel we have to have nuts always talk about how heart healthy the walnut is, high in omega-3 fatty acids, but you could use other nuts. They tend to be like less expensive than, say, using things like cashews, macadamia nuts, and pistachios. So we're going to place this in the food processor, and we're going to add our cocoa powder. Now, you can use cocoa powder, you can use carob powder, roasted carob powder, cacao powder. You can see that there's a difference in color between cocoa powders. You don't have to, we are going to use this in one recipe. If money is no object, the best cocoa powder I've ever had was Valrhona. It's from France. It's $22 a pound. Like, this little thing was like $10. It's very expensive. So I tend to just use the more affordable ones, like this one from Trader Joe's, which was just I think it was $1.99. Or even Hershey's has a wonderful dark cocoa powder that they have at Walmart and Winco and all those kind of places. But you can see that there's a color difference between this and some of the finer brands that are darker. But most people love chocolate so much they don't really complain, regardless of which one you're using. So we are going to take our 2 ingredients. Also, there was a little bit of vanilla powder in there, the vanilla bean powder, and we're just going to process this into the crumb-like consistency. Now, when you're grinding nuts, you don't want to over mix. You don't want to over mix in general in baking, especially plant-based or vegan baking. But if I were to keep grinding this, I would get a nut butter, which is great if you want to make a nut butter sandwich, but not so much if you want to make a pie crust. So I forgot to measure out my Devlet ore for this one. So I have some pitted medules handy. So I'll use those. Even though they say they're pitted, I am still going to press each one removing this little stem at the end, because believe it or not, it's not perfect with pitted dates. They often do have pits in them. And what the pit can do is it can totally damage your food processor blade. So as you know, many of our recipes are already done. We just haven't showed them to you, like the apple pie rice pudding, the muffins. We know you've seen the cinnamon vanilla bliss ball and the rustic fruit tart. So far, all of these are pitted. I always save my containers, and then guests at the potluck can take things home. And so now we're going to make this crust. You kind of know that it's ready when your food processor starts to slow down. And again, using the same technique we used before, smush it in your hand, break point, perfect. You know, when you think about it, I used to know how to make pie crust with the technique with the flour and the ice cubes. It takes forever. This takes no time at all. Place it in your hand and then just press down with the palm and the heel of your hand. And this is like a 5-minute pie crust. And if company came at the last minute, you could just slice some strawberries and this actually happened. It happens to me a lot. Company does, but remember when the guy whose name starts with B? Yeah, they don't want to say any names because there might be people, you know, but it seems like people show up and I got to make something. So this doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be covered. So you press this in and there's our crust. No baking required. So one of the other reasons I love to make desserts that don't require an oven is because I tend to live in places that are warm. Not anymore. I live in a tundra now. It's called Northern California, and it gets down to 38. But I'm used to living in LA or the desert. And so if there was a way I could make a delicious meal without having to turn ovens and stoves on, using an Instant Pot, not having to cook it, I like that better than to have to use my oven. But again, there's plenty of baked recipes from cupcakes to cheesecakes and stuff in the book. So I've got my crust, and so now I have to make my filling. And so I have more walnuts. And again, you could use walnut butter, but that's going to be a lot more expensive. So I'm just going to grind these into an almost nut butter consistency. It doesn't have to be perfect because it just works even as long as it's ground. Oops. There we go. So when I used to make this back in the day, I used to grind it all the way into a nut butter, and it took like 5 minutes. And then one day, I forget the reason, I just said, yeah, you know, is it really necessary? And I just ground it into this consistency, which is more like breadcrumbs, and it still works. And you just save a lot of time. So now I'm going to make my date paste. So all date paste is dates plus a liquid. And you want to make sure you soak it in the liquid several hours, maybe even overnight. If you're in a hurry, you can make date paste in a pressure cooker or use boiling water. So the liquid varies depending on the recipe. Since this is an orange chocolate mousse tort, I want a subtle orange flavoring in it. So I soaked it in unsweetened orange juice, which I bought, but you can make yourself. Some people don't like the orange flavor. So when I've had custom orders, I've used cherry juice unsweetened. I've used pomegranate juice, or I've just used water if people want it just straight up chocolate mousse tort. And sometimes I've even added mint to make it a mint chocolate mousse tort. So that's basically how I make date paste. It's so funny when I see like all these things on social media, like people like they invented date paste. I've been doing this for like 25 years, but there was no social media to show you that I have. But basically it's dates and water. Now you can buy commercial date paste. The only problem is their ratio of water to dates is different than mine. So I can't vouch for it to be working in my recipes. Usually it's like a brick. date paste is made in a machine called an extruder. So if you've ever been to a deli and watched them make like chopped liver, an extruder is like a shower head. And so they're putting stuff in, and that's how they do date paste. And that's fine, but it just doesn't work in my recipes. It's just easier and cheaper to make your own. So I'm going to pour this into the food processor. Now, when you soak the dates, whether it's in orange juice or any liquid, people think they throw the soap water out. Well, that's not a good idea. One, you're going to have a much harder time processing it. And two, you've been soaking it. So now all the sweetness, all the natural sugars are in the liquid. So never throw out your soap water. So to that, I'm going to show you how to make date paste first, and then I'm going to do my add-ins. So we're going to process that. You haven't seen my offset spatula, have you?
No.
So literally, once your dates are soaked, it takes no time to make the date paste. Now, you can see how this is very kind of liquidy, but when you refrigerate date paste, and this is one I made in advance, it thickens up in your refrigerator, and it lasts for months in your refrigerator, even longer in your freezer. So to my date paste now, I'm going to add my cocoa powder and some unsweetened coconut. If you don't do coconut, that's okay. Just leave it out. This just adds a little bit of richness. Process again. And now we're going to add our nuts back in, our ground nuts. It smells so good with that little hint of orange. It's very subtle. Sometimes you have to stop your food processor and just kind of scrape the sides just to get everything off. Wow, this smells amazing. And this is lighter in color because I used a lighter cocoa powder. If you want it darker, use a darker cocoa powder. And basically we're done. Now, of course, this has to set up in the freezer. And texturally, it's not going to get rock hard in the freezer. So I recommend you not only set it up in the freezer, but serve it frozen. Maybe take it out, 10 minutes before you plan to eat it, or maybe cut it because you don't want to keep this in the refrigerator or at room temperature. It's not that it will melt, it just won't be the ideal temperature. So we're just going to place this on top. I have this little tool called an offset spatula, and I'm not sure where it is. Do you know where it is, Charles?
No.
Well, if I can't find it, I got to order another one on Amazon for $7. It's one of my favorite culinary tools because it flattens and smooths the top a lot easier than just using your regular knife or spatula. But what I need to show you is my favorite trick for cleaning the blade. Whether you're making one of these desserts or maybe making hummus, what happens is a lot of it gets stuck on the blade. And so I've seen people bring this, like wash it and just like forget it. But here's all you got to do. You place it back on the base of your food processor. You put the top on and you literally pulse it one time. And now that blade that had all that chocolatey goodness is pretty much clean. And look at all the product that is left by doing that. There's probably a half a cup. That's like a serving. So please don't leave stuff on your blade. Very lucky to be doing this today because we have our potluck Sunday. So the local plant eaters will enjoy that. We even have one of the vegan doctors coming all the way from India, not just to come to my house. She's already here, but here we go. So we're just going to smooth this over the top. If I could find my offset spatula, I would show you what a wonderful tool that is. Let's see if I got this. Oh, yes, it got in the wrong drawer. Good. So this is so much easier to smooth with because the beveledness. So I would much prefer to use that. And we're going to just smooth it out. Now this one, I didn't have room in my freezer to make one to show you what it looks like, but I did show you the picture at the beginning of the demo of what it does look like. And you can garnish it with orange slices or zested orange. I like to serve this with a raspberry coulis, which we're going to make. And so now we're going to decorate the top. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. One of the things I like to do is just put a little bit of unsweetened coconut because it makes it pretty. I like to use the reduced fat coconut because instead of having 220 calories for a quarter cup, it has 70, and it has about a third as much, 2/3 less fat. So traditional coconut will have 21 grams of fat for a quarter cup. This has 7. But again, I'm not really using it in a discernible amount. I'm just sprinkling it lightly over the top, just kind of like little snow. You don't have to do this. Hemp seeds could give this the white look. You know, a lot of desserts are sprinkled with powdered sugar. So that's kind of why I'm using this, but you totally don't have to. You could decorate it with fruit, however you want. I just think this kind of looks pretty. And again, I don't even think I'm using 2 tablespoons here, you know, just trying to get it a little bit covered. And then what I'm going to do is this will also give it a nice crunch and also look pretty, is I'm going to take my organic unsweetened, because these also come with sugar, cacao nibs, and just sprinkle them over the top. And that just kind of makes it look pretty. And then I'm going to actually stick this in the freezer, and it'll probably be ready in about 4 hours. But usually I tend to do things the day before because then I can cut it. And I will get, I mean, if you slice it in 12 slices, those will be big slices. You probably want to get at least 16. I've gotten 24 out of these. There we go. And then you can take your hand and just gently press down so that those cacao nibs go on top. And if you feel like it needs a little more coconut, that's fine too. Yeah. As much or as little as you want. And there you have it. The beautiful whole food, no processed food, orange chocolate mousse torte. I'm going to place this in the freezer, and I'll be right back. I think, was that recipe 5 or 6? I don't know. I hope you guys are counting. Okay. All right, so what's next? Let's see. We've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well, our camera person needs a treat. So recipe number 6 is his favorite. That's my husband, Charles. He's plant-based also and awesome. And now we're going to make the desert date shake. A lot of people think it's dessert date shake, but desert has 1 S and dessert has 2 S's. So when we lived in the desert, he would go and get a date shake. If you've never heard of a date shake, maybe you've heard of Hadley's in Palm Springs. I'm not sure if they originated the date shake, but date shakes are awesome. The thing is until recently, they weren't vegan because they were made with milk and they always had sugar in them. And so my husband found a place in Palm Desert that made them vegan without dairy milk and without sugar. The only problem is they were like $12, and he was going every day. And I said, this is ridiculous. And so I took a sip of his because I had to know what it tasted like to order to recreate it. And then I also said, we're going to do a switcheroo, okay? I went to the store because they wouldn't give me the exact recipe, but by law, they've got to tell me the ingredients, right, for allergy. And I tried to recreate it, and he feels that I nailed it. This recipe is wonderful, and there's other things you can do with it, which I'm going to show you as soon as I get it all set up, getting my blender back. We make this at Rancho La Puerta, and they love it for some reason. So what I do, do you want it coffee or regular?
Coffee.
Okay, so it's not real coffee, by the way. We're caffeine sensitive. But what we do is we have the vanilla date shake, and then we have a way to make it taste like coffee without using coffee. So I have already measured out my non-dairy milk, and I put my dates in there to soak. Even though it's a high-powered blender, it just tends to go a little quicker if I've soaked the dates in advance. So I'm putting that in my blender. And what would a date shake be without dates after all? Because this is a recipe we make often, and I do this with all my recipes, be it savory or sweet, is I pre-measure, not just because I'm doing this demo for you, it's just easier. So I'll take 12 bottles and I'll line them up and I'll measure all my ingredients. I do this for my soups, stews, chili. It just makes it so much easier. And when I go to Mexico, God, I already like this. I have to measure it. I always sniff it to make sure it's the right thing, because once I put cumin in dessert oatmeal and that wasn't good. Yep, it's right. Now, listen, you don't have to get vanilla bean powder, but for this recipe, it's like non-negotiable. The other ones, maybe not so much. So that's our vanilla date shake. We're going to need the bananas to make it smooth and creamy. Banana is not a primary flavor in this, date and vanilla is, but my husband likes it to taste like coffee, but he can't have caffeine. So I'm using the unforgettable brown roast coffee. It's literally just brown rice. It's called Say Me, but there's other brands, Dandy Blend, which they say is gluten-free, but I reacted to it, so I'm not sure. Taquino. So if you do coffee, you could do espresso powder, you know? So how much you put in, this is a half a tablespoon measure. So how much coffee flavor do you want? Just a little or a lot, Charles?
Oh, just a little.
Okay, so we'll do 1 tablespoon, but we've done up to 2, depending on how mocha-y you want it. It does make it taste almost chocolatey. So I got to get the bananas because I don't keep those out. So, you know, I like to have fruit at various stages, and these bananas are beautiful, but they're, in my opinion, too ripe for my enjoyment for eating. But when they get darker, they're going to be perfect for freezing. When you freeze your bananas, you want to make sure to take the peel off because it's really hard to get the peel off once it's frozen. And then we're going to take our banana. Actually, it calls for 2 bananas and place them in the blender. I think you could put this back in the top shelf of the refrigerator. I got them. My hands were cold, so I had to wash them there. All right. Presentation is everything with food, especially plant-based food. So I like to serve it in a traditional milkshake glass with a glass straw because it's more environmentally friendly than using a plastic straw every time. And so now we're just going to blend it. I think that Zoom will mute the sound though. It might have been a long time, but it actually said it was 29 seconds. Now, if you want it thicker, we're going to add ice, but you don't want it thicker, right? Because what happens is when you add ice, this is kind of cool because one of the things I also teach, believe it or not, when I have my other hat on is calorie density weight loss. Adding ice is going to increase volume but keep the calories the same. It's going to get thicker and you can get more servings, but he's a tall, thin drink of water. So we don't need to do that for him. So he's going to drink this right now because he's been working very hard, but I'm going to show you a couple of other things you can do with it. One of the things I love to do is make fudgicles, and this is a popsicle maker. And you pour it in and it makes exactly the amount that this holds, which is 10. And then when you pour it in there, you take your popsicle stick after you pour it in, and then you freeze it. So I love to do that. If you have a Ninja Creamy, you can put it in the pint, freeze it as you would, and then you can spin it and have either, you know, Frappuccino ice cream or date ice cream. And if we have any time at the end, which I don't think we will, I could actually do that for you because we do have the pints all ready to go. So we're just going to pour him a nice, oh gosh, this is so good. It's like, you know, you go to Starbucks and have a Frappuccino and it's got like 1,200 calories or whatever. And this is just so yummy. And I think he's going to drink this right now. So I wish I could, but I'm working. To your health. There you go. All right. And you have a little bit left over here. All right. So what's next? Ooh. Okay. What's next is the chocolate fondue. You're going to have to give me a moment because I've got to wash this out. So talk amongst yourself, or maybe I can, if you put the thing over here, maybe I can tell them a joke or something. That's the only thing. This would be a good time to answer a question if anybody wanted to, if Michael was there, because I do need like about a minute or two. I've got to at least rinse my equipment because I have done 6 recipes already. How am I doing on time, Charles? Did I, how?
You only have, you've done 1 hour and 8 minutes. You only have 22
Oh
minutes
boy,
left.
I got 22 minutes left to do 6 recipes, so I'm gonna have to hurry, but I think I can do it. One of the reasons they liked me at the restaurant so much is I was so fast and I was being paid by the hour. So anyway.
Did,
Almost,
did you want me to ask you a question?
yeah,
Chef?
just a couple of questions while I'm rinsing these out. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, give me 1 second here.
It's an easy one that doesn't have too long of an answer.
Okay, well, I'll give you an easy one for someone new to plant-based cooking. What are some essential items that they need in the kitchen as far as equipment, and what are some essential items that they need for ingredients?
Okay, well, I'll answer the second part of the question first. For the ingredients, anything that's a whole unprocessed plant food, something that comes from a plant, not manufactured in a plant. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, of course. So limiting or, omitting processed food completely. So there's so many categories. I mean, there's 400 kinds of sweet potatoes. There's 1,800 kinds of legumes. You will never get bored or lack variety. Please put the food processor back up. So those would be the ingredients I would focus on. And that doesn't mean you can't have some convenience of ingredients. Frozen fruits and vegetables, every bit as nutritious as fresh. Canned beans, preferably salt-free. Would you mind putting the food processor back up for me? Okay. So with equipment, I don't want people to like get all this equipment and say, oh, she made me buy all this stuff. However, because if you have a pot, you could probably do it, right? It's just that as things become available, it makes life easier. So I would recommend a pressure cooker to people. I find that is one of the easiest things. I would probably start there. Throughout most of my life as a vegan, 47 years, I didn't have a high-powered blender. I didn't have a food processor. I didn't have an Instant Pot. I didn't have an air fryer, but I still made it work. Okay, so thank you for the question. And now we are on to the peanut butter fudge truffles. Actually, but to do that, we have to make another recipe first, which is called chocolate fondue. It's like fondue, but it's fun. Okay. So, oh gosh, got to make the peanut butter. All right, we're going to go over there for 1 second. This will take 2 minutes. I want to show you how easy it is to make your own nut butter. My husband needs to eat a lot of fat. He is so tall and thin, and so he eats nut butter every day for lunch. But it was getting so expensive buying organic nut butters and throwing out the jars. They were glass and sometimes plastic. You don't need the machine I'm using called the Nutrimilk. You can do this in a high-powered blender, in a Champion juicer, or even in a food processor for the S-Blade. But I've got this machine, so I'm going to use it. 2 minutes to make the creamiest nut butter right over here. Okay. I'm making a double batch so he can eat it more. And so I'm just going to put this in. So you put it in any machine of your choice. It doesn't require any oil or sugar or salt. Think about like Skippy peanut butter. It's just like hydrogenated, corn syrup. If you don't want to do this, I recommend going to a store that has the machine where you, like Whole Foods, where you can just get the serving that you want. But it just ended up being much more cost effective. But more than that, to us, taste matters. And Charles, would you say this tastes better than commercial peanut butter?
Yes.
Yep, much different. So basically, I am just going to put this for 2 minutes. It's all it takes. And we're going to have nut butter. "56 seconds on the timer. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Again, if you want all these recipes in a PDF, just email help@chefaj.com.
My virtual assistant Linda created a beautiful PDF of all these recipes written with the exact ingredients. They'll also be part of my new book, Sweet Indulgence, which comes out in the summer. Pre-order and get hundreds of dollars worth of bonuses if you save your receipt. Got about 24 more seconds. Again, remember, you can do this in a blender, high-powered blender, processor. Now, there's a chance I might have to do a few more seconds because I did do 2 pounds instead of 1. These peanuts, by the way, are not raw. Raw peanuts don't taste very good. They're roasted, but they are unsalted.
Okay. That's not as creamy as we normally do, but that's okay. We can, you know what? I'm sorry to do this to you guys, but we got to do another minute. It's just, I think it's because I did a double batch. I'll put it on 2 minutes, but I can stop it really.
So if you don't eat peanuts or peanut butter, what you can do in this recipe is substitute a different nut or seed butter. So you can use almond butter, cashew butter, pistachio butter, hemp seed butter. If you like the taste of peanut butter, but for example, like your kid's school doesn't allow peanut butter, what a lot of parents, I'm told, do is use sunflower seed butter, particularly roasted sunflower seed butter, because it tastes kind of similar to peanut butter. If you want to lower the fat in this particular recipe, what you can do, and this is crazy, but it works, is you take black beans. You'll take a can of black beans, preferably salt-free, rinse and drain them, and substitute them for half the amount of nut butter. And then what some people do, I've never used this, so I can't give you a measurement, but a lot of people use a defatted powdered peanut butter called PB2. Because I've never used it, I don't want to tell you that it can or cannot work. Yeah, you can see it's already getting so much more creamy. Just the 3rd minute made a difference. I think the reason it took longer, it normally takes 2 minutes, but I did a double and that's probably why. So this recipe is actually 3 recipes in one. So what I'm going to do first is show you how to make chocolate fondue, which is actually the dip. It's like fondue and you can make fruit skewers to dip it. But then what we're going to do is turn it into the peanut butter fudge truffles, which is the 2nd recipe, and then turn it into the Nutty Buddies. What Nutty Buddies are, if you've ever been to Disneyland, it's basically a frozen banana that's frozen and rolled in chocolate and nuts. If you've ever been to Balboa Island near San Diego, when I was little, they used to dip them for you on the spot, roll it in whatever you want, crushed nuts, coconut, things like that. And they're really good. Okay, so 10 seconds and now our peanut butter will be ready. So I lied. It took 4 instead of 2. But hey, he's going to have peanut butter for like I don't know, what's this, a month? It's going to be a long time to.
There we go. So we're just going to take our peanut butter over to the other area and get it out of here. So now what we're going to do is get a cup of peanut butter. First, we're going to take our date paste, which I already made. I did show you how to make date paste, though, in the orange chocolate mousse torte. And then we need 1 cup of peanut butter. It's nice when you cook in your own kitchen because you have all the ingredients. It's just so creamy and soft when you make it yourself. You know, a lot of times when you buy commercial peanut butter, I don't know what they do to get that icky layer of oil on top, and it gets really hard in your fridge. For some reason, Charles, doesn't this stay soft? I don't know why, but when you make it yourself, it stays this way in the fridge. And I could show it to you, except he ate his last. So now I'm going to add my peanut butter or any nut or seed butter you want. This over here. Okay, and then our cocoa powder, I'm using the $22 a pound cocoa powder for this one, because I want it to be that way. And then I've got my non-dairy milk. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to process this. So this is the fondue. So this is super, super thick now. It's not even spreadable. Remember, with all recipes, you can always add ingredients. You can't take it out. So we're just going to start. This is 1 cup of unsweetened almond milk. I'm going to start with a half a cup because I can always add to get the consistency I want. I want to scrape down the sides. Oh boy, doesn't this could be a frosting. This is so easy to make. and it smells amazing. So this is the consistency I want. I didn't need the other half a cup. And you know why? Because my peanut butter was soft. When I use the commercial nut butters, it's so hard. I need the whole cup of milk to get it to process. So how would I serve this? Well, if you ever go to like the 99-cent store, or you could get them in a regular store, just be more expensive. They have skewers. And what you could do is take things like little pieces of mandarin oranges, banana, vegan marshmallows, and you can make like a platter. So just to give you an example of a way that I would maybe serve it is I'll take my favorite apple, which is the Envy apple. You know, kids eat things that are cut up. And kids, and by the way, these desserts are kid tested and mother approved. So the only thing is sometimes these apples wiggle and wobble. Okay, so I've got my apple. And what I'll do, so I got some bad news. I can't show you the peanut butter truffles. I'm going to tell you how. And the reason is I made a boo-boo. What I need to roll them in are more peanuts. And I put them all in peanut butter. But I'm going to show you how to do it. It's just, you can't roll it in nothing. It won't stick together. Ooh, I could roll it in the oh, wait, this is going to be off the hook. Okay, but first let me see, this is why I love mistakes, because all the good things came out of mistakes. So we're just going to put this in the dish. I just had the best idea. At least I can show you the rolling technique. The thing is you do want to chill it a little bit. It makes it easier to roll if it's a little bit thicker. So we'll have, and you know, if you don't like chocolate, you can use carob or just do the peanut butter and dates. It'd be amazing. Okay, so we've got our dip, right? And we'll put it on a plate. Remember, presentation is everything. And then just put your beautiful apple around. Look at that. You make an apple fan. Oh, one of the best recipes in my book, and I couldn't make it because it bakes for 45 minutes, is the apple pie that won't make you die. And you do an apple fan technique, or in the pear pie. So we'll just go all the way around in a beautiful kind of sunburst here, having them all go the same way. So instead of feeding your family unhealthy sugary treats with dairy and all kinds of processed ingredients, you could serve them delicious chocolate fondue. Okay, next. So if you want to roll them into truffles, I'm going to show you how to do it, even though I forgot to make peanuts. So remember this truffle, this delicious truffle, it's a good thing I didn't roll them all into balls, because what you can do is just pretend you want to eat this.
Sure.
Here, go ahead and tell the people how good it is. My husband's going to eat this one. So imagine that if you could lower the camera, imagine that these were peanuts, ground peanuts, right? So I have some of them in the bowl. And then I take my cookie scoop. This one's actually too big. This one's too small, but I'm just showing you technique. And then I take it and then I plop it in my chopped peanuts. In this case, it's not peanuts, but you get the idea. And then you roll it. And then we need to put it on a plate and stick it in the freezer. So this is kind of how you do it. But remember, you'd want this to be thicker to start. And by doing that, we would refrigerate it first. But one lucky person on Sunday is going to try this, and we'll let you know how this was. Because if this was thicker, it would be a perfect ball and it would go into candy papers. Now, I used to live across the street from C's Candy in Sherman Oaks. And I would buy one piece of candy, and it would be like 80 cents just to get the box, because they wouldn't sell me the box. And I would trick kids, because I worked with a lot of parents whose kids were addicted to sugar. And we put it in C's candy box. They didn't know. All right, so how do we make a Nutty Buddy? Well, this is a lot of fun, and this is delicious. You know, what you could do, especially around Halloween, you can get sticks at craft stores, and you could put this over the apple and then roll it into like the crumbs. That would be an amazing kind of apple like they used to have at Rocky Mountain Chocolate. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our banana. We're going to take our popsicle sticks. Now, I usually like to do the banana in half just because it's kind of rich and it's big. So I just take my banana and I'll cut it in half. And then I'll put a stick in it like that. I'll probably just want to make sure I'll do one later and I'll do one now. And then we get another dish. Good thing I have a lot of dishes. So what we're going to do is actually what I'm going to do. Oh, I'm going to coat this banana. Oh, it fell down. Okay. That's because I'm rushing right now, but here, let's just do this like banana pop. The stick didn't go up all the way. So go all the way around. This smells yummy. Peanut butter, chocolate, and banana. Elvis Presley would probably love this. Okay. And then we're going to roll it. In this case, in our crumbs, but it could be in chopped nuts. And then we have our little banana pops. So we're going to need to freeze that. This is a little bit messy, but kids would love this. Okay, I got 3 recipes left. Am I going to make it? I don't know. What are they? Oh, yes, these are quick ones. These are in the blender. Okay, these are really, really quick recipes. So maybe we'll go over there because this place is getting kind of messy now. Luckily, I have an hour between this demo and my panel, so I can clean my kitchen. So what we're going to do now is make a really quick recipe. This is called raspberry coulis. And don't forget, I want to show you the apple pie rice pudding before you're done. Why don't we go to over there because it might be easier because it's getting kind of messy on this side of the kitchen. We just have to plug in our Vitamix over here. And I love these bottles that you can get at the 99-cent store or the Dollar Tree. And everything tastes better with a sauce. This sauce can be used on the pies that we've made, and it can also be used on the pudding that we're going to make next. So what we're going to do is you simply take your favorite fruit. Mine would be raspberries or strawberries, defrost them, frozen, and every bit is nutritious and fresh, sometimes more so because it's picked at its peak of ripeness, and dates, date syrup, date paste. I always start with about a 1/4 cup. You know, you can always add and make things sweeter, but you can't take away. And everything looks prettier when it's plated with a delicious red sauce. You could do cherry as well. Oops, wrong top. Okay. There we go. Turn it on. Turn it low first. What's going on? There we go. That was easy, right? Really quick sauce, makes everything more delicious. Take a little funnel. Where's the squeezy? Hello, I just showed it to you. Where's this? Oh, here it is. And pour it in. Oh, so good. We love to put this on banana and ice cream, which I hope I have time to show you because that is probably my other favorite recipe. And again, you can use whole dates, date paste, date syrup. Now remember, raspberries tend to be less sweet when they're frozen. Sometimes if you get ripe enough fruit, like fresh raspberries, you might not have to add any dates. The only thing that's, I don't want to say difficult, but when you work with dates, you know, we all have different palates, just like, you know, you think about those old English comedies, 1 lump or 2, not everybody likes the same amount of sweetness, but that's kind of what's cool about dates is you can vary it to how sweet you like it. When you put your little top on, we keep this in the fridge for everything. And then you can just plate everything, even your own hand. Delicious. All right, let me show you how to make the best pudding. Okay. Okay, this does not look very good, and I'll explain why. So let me get the other blender. So sometimes my bananas are not as ripe as I want them to be for desserts. And so I keep them in the freezer. But when you defrost them, they kind of look kind of mushy and black, and yucky. But don't let that fool you. It's going to be fine in this recipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my blender, liquid and all. And first I'm going to just puree this or blend this. Okay, you can see it's so now it's not all brown now. Then I'm going to add my roasted sweet potatoes. They need to be roasted. You know, you can get sweet potatoes even at Walmart frozen or microwave your sweet potatoes. You need to roast them. That's what caramelizes them and brings out the natural sugar. It tastes completely different than a baked or a microwaved or a frozen one. So we're going to add these beautiful sweet potatoes. This is such a ridiculously easy recipe. It's basically 2 ingredients plus cinnamon and vanilla. And I wish I could take credit for it, but it was created by Mairead Ready, who has a wonderful Instagram page, Ready or Not. So let me get the other 2 ingredients, the vanilla powder and the cinnamon. Oh, you know what I'm going to use instead of cinnamon? It's from local spicery, the pumpkin pie spice. So this is kind of tastes like fall. Actually, she actually calls it fall pudding. I renamed it. She allowed me to rename it butterscotch pudding because it reminded me of the snack pack butterscotch pudding. Pure vanilla bean powder. This brand's from local spicery, but doesn't matter where you get it. And so now we're going to blend. This is so good. This is so good that John Tanner, who has a vegan food delivery service, oil-free in Monrovia, who ships nationwide, puts it on his menu. Delicious. This is going to be amazing this is going to thicken as it cools, and it's going to be amazing with the red sauce if we want it. And actually what I like to do sometimes is if there's leftovers, put it in the popsicle thing, put it in the Ninja Creamy thing, or even stir in oats and bake it as a cookie. All those recipes are in the book. Okay. Oh, I've got 2 more recipes. I think I can do it. Okay. Where should I go? We'll go back here. We just need a little room over here. Okay, so what I want to do, and this is going to sound really, really weird, but it's good. First thing I want to do is take my muffins out. And look how beautiful these look, and look how easily they release. Look at that. No sticking, because I gave them a chance to rest. Yum, yum. Because I need my oven now, because I want to make my cinnamon crisps. Does anybody remember cinnamon crispos from, I think it was Taco Bell? So I'm going to show you how to make a healthy version. I'm using Mi Rancho tortillas because I'm not a stickler with organic, except when it comes to corn. And also I like the Thin Credibles because they're thinner, even though they're less calories. I'm doing it mainly because they're going to crisp up better. So what I'm going to do is, this is how I make my chips too, but I'm going to make the cinnamon chips. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to take, I already have some made in advance, but these only take 5 minutes to make. I'm using my air fryer. I'm going to put 4 out. Okay. My little squirt water bottle. And then I'm going to sprinkle the cinnamon. Yep. And because I'm using that cassia cinnamon, I don't know if you guys remember that little bear from 1960 that was cinnamon sugar, but cassia cinnamon tastes like sugar. I'm going to pop these in the air fryer, 325 for 5 minutes. And when they're done, nice and crisp. And what we're going to do is serve this with a strawberry salsa. So let me show you how to do that. Luckily, I have cut my strawberries in advance. You can use this in the sweet potato pudding, but because it's not roasted, it won't be quite as sweet. So what else is going to go into this salsa? This is the only recipe in the book that is a little bit savory because it does have a little bit of onion, but we're going to use fresh mint. I'm using these really cool herb scissors that Dr. Hans Deal gave to me, so I can get thin little slices. This is great for basil, and you can also use basil in here instead of mint. This may sound like a weird thing to be in a dessert book, but we often serve this as an appetizer. And one of my favorite plant-based doctors, Dr. Rosanne Oliveira, she loves this, and it's just really, really good. So we're putting in the mint. Now, you can put in a jalapeno because it's also going to have lime juice. But basically, I'm lazy, and I found this vinegar from California Balsamic, that's jalapeno lime, 2 free small samples if you go through Chef AJ's link. And this way, because it makes it just a little bit sweeter than using just lime juice and jalapeno, because what happens is strawberries this time of year especially aren't always sweet. So I've been taking to making it this way. And you know what? If you don't want to put in the little bit of onion, you don't have to. It's still going to be delicious, but a little bit of savory in here can really work. I don't know where my I want that little choppy tool. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to put the onion in now just to save time so that I can get to the last 2 recipes. But this is delicious with the cinnamon chips. I need a blender. If you can have the rest of this. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. Oh, so close, so close. All right. I probably should have stopped at a dozen recipes, but now we're going to show you another topping. Can you put that towards me? So I'm going to show you Pear Whip. I love the Pear Whip, and I hope that I would have time to plate all these desserts, but probably not, because what I like to do is take that fall pudding or the rice pudding and then layer it in a beautiful parfait glass with this whipped cream that I'm making out of pears and a red sauce. I still haven't showed you the apple pie rice pudding, but I will. So easy to make. Is this plugged in? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pears, and I'm using canned pears or jarred pears because pears are finicky. And this time of year, there's no pears. And a lot of times, even fresh pears, they're pretty hard and not sweet. But canned pears in their own juice, they're great. And they're available all year round and they're affordable. So I'm going to put that in there. And the original recipe had cashews, which are great, but it's high caloric density, high fat. So instead, I'm substituting nuts, a little bit of vanilla powder. Wish you guys were here to taste everything, but we put this on quite a few of our desserts. One reason that the Vitamix is better is because of the tamper, but this one I like because of the lines on it. So we want this to be smooth. I could put just a dollop of the milk in it too to make it blend. Never thought about that, but it's sitting right here. So this doesn't taste like a whipped cream like you would get in the can, but it sure tastes really, really good. And if you wouldn't mind, let me show you the apple pie rice pudding. It's been ready for a really long time. You want to come over here and let me get a stirrer. Okay, so I'm going to unplug this now because it'll stay hot. This smells so good from the cinnamon, the vanilla, the cardamom. And again, if you don't do white rice, just do you, whatever kind you want. But this can actually be a breakfast. And it's really quite delicious. Just stir it up. And the apples are nice and soft and cooked. You could use pear. And people really, really like comforting rice pudding. And like I said, Pear Whip on top of this is fantastic. Okay, last recipe, banana ice cream. And this is what started it all for me in 1987, when I really started to realize you never need to have sugar in order to satisfy your sweet tooth. We're going to go over to the Champion Juicer. Right over there. Okay. The champion juicer isn't being made anymore, but it doesn't matter. There's many machines you can do this in, a Vitamix, a Blend Tech, a Dessert Bullet, the Nutrimilk, the food, there's so many now, but this is what I have. So this is what I'm using. If you can get one on eBay, they're amazing. You have your frozen fruit. Bananas are probably the creamiest because they're higher in sugar than a lot of fruits, lower in water. This is actually a juicer that I'm not using as a juicer. All you do is you turn it on. You know, I do recommend you plug it in first. It works better that way. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Have my cute little ice cream cup. And you just push it down. This is the best ice cream I have ever had. When I teach cooking classes, people are like, what's in it? And they see me making it and I go, a banana. They go, no, what's in it? And I'm like, a banana. You can do other flavors. Mango is fantastic. Cherry is fantastic. It's so thick. It's creamy. It's really a toss-up between this and the Ninja Creamy. But this, I've been using this since 1987. Okay. There we have it. You have your little red sauce. So this always does this when I'm there, but that's basically, you'll eat this, right, Charles?
Yes.
You'll eat it on the spot. Let's just put a little red sauce on it. Look at that. So there you have it. 15 recipes from the fruit, the whole fruit, nothing but the whole fruit. I'm Chef AJ. I'm going to my computer now, so you can ask me any questions you want. Thank you so much. All right. Let me go. You eat your ice cream.
Thank you very much, Chef AJ. That was extraordinarily impressive watching you make all of that food. So with that, we've got about 20 minutes before the panels begin. So we can go ahead and start with some questions. Just give me a moment to get situated here. And I'll give you a moment to get to your computer as well.
Oh, AJ is there, but you need to, I think, turn on her.
Oh, John, can you switch Chef AJ over to the other user?
Yep, I'm doing it right now. Give me a second.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chef AJ, can you enable your video? I'm trying to do on your end.
It will not let her unmute.
Oh, maybe because she's not a presenter. John.
No, she's a co-host.
Oh, she is. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I know that it's been in the chat many times, but for people who are still wanting her recipes but not sure how to get all these amazing recipes that Chef AJ made today, you can go ahead and email help@chefaj.com, and I'll type it in the chat real quickly for you guys.
Okay, I'll just answer the questions from here since I can't unmute my computer. So here we are.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate your adaptability. So yeah, absolutely extraordinarily impressive. That was very quick and extremely organized. So, all right. So first question, you made all these wonderful foods. And so this maybe what you did today, answers this question, but what does a cheat day on a whole food plant-based diet look like?
Well, here's the thing. When you eat a whole food plant-based diet, you don't need a cheat day because everything was legal, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
For me, because I used to be heavy, a cheat day may be a little bit higher calorie density, like a little avocado in my sushi. But the food is so delicious. You get to eat so much of it. Why didn't you have a cheat day? Like, if you have a cheat day on your marriage? No, I mean, maybe you do. So maybe
So,
we
so yeah, I've often heard people on a whole food plant-based diet say that their bad is other people's good. So yeah.
Yeah, Dr. McDougall, who's on the panel next, he often talks about this because I'm a culinary instructor for his program, is that people that are doing the maximum weight loss, McDougall, when they cheat, they go to the starch solution. Like, you don't to, because you get to eat so much delicious food in abundance. That's the best thing I think about this is, if you call it a diet, so you don't have to weigh and measure your food. You can really, if you're not eating, especially if you're not eating oil, you can eat as much as you want whenever you want. Like, I cannot wait. Like, this is what I'm going to eat. Like, as soon as I'm not on the air, oh my God.
Looks phenomenal. Looks
Right.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
So in one of your books, you discuss the importance of whole foods. Can you explain the difference between whole foods and processed foods in the context of weight loss? And how is the processing that we do in our kitchens to make these recipes and other whole food plant-based recipes different than the processing done by the large companies when they make the processed food products that people tend to buy in the store?
Exactly. So there's a difference between processing and refining. So, in other words, Dr. Hans Diehl used to say, eat food from a plant, not food that's manufactured in the plant. And so if I take a can of salt-free garbanzo beans in my food processor with lemon and tahini and garlic, I am processing it, but I'm not refining it. Nothing is being taken away. But can anybody here honestly tell me they can make maple syrup or agave or corn oil or olive oil? Things where everything good is removed, right? All the fiber, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, micronutrients. So unless we have a garden and we pick up the carrot and eat it, most of our food is processed because somebody picked it and washed it and maybe put it in a bag. So processing, there's a difference between processing and ultra processing. So in general, with very few exceptions, like salt-free beans, some tomato products, if it comes in a can, a box, a bottle, or a bag, it's probably ultra processed. I mean, again, some exceptions, just sweet potatoes. So there's nothing wrong with you processing at home using some of these equipment, unless you want to just eat everything in its whole food form, that's fine. But it's the refining. It's when things are stripped and taken out, flour, sugar, alcohol. If you can easily make it in your kitchen, it's probably okay to eat. I mean, you could have, there's a gray area, tofu, tempeh, they're processed, but they're not highly processed. And that's something you could make. You could even make pasta in your kitchen. But can anybody really make white flour, white sugar, olive oil, coconut oil? So that's how I look at it.
All right, great. That's a great distinction. Thank you. So obviously you made all these wonderful desserts today. What's the essence of making desserts without using sugar, oil, salt, gluten, and still making them satisfying and delicious?
The fruit, the whole fruit, nothing but the whole fruit. Right. Again, if somebody is completely addicted to the standard American diet and sugar, they may find my desserts not sweet enough, except the chocolate ones pretty much. But some of the lower calorie density ones, like the apple pie rice pudding. So the first secret is to get off the white powders, cocaine, sugar, flour, salt. Give your taste buds some time to neuroadapt to the subtle but delicious flavors of whole natural food. And then you will enjoy nature's bounty. So that's one of the secret, using fruits instead of sugar. I'm not against fat. I'm against oil. There's a big difference, because even if there's something good that you think you need in coconut oil, olive oil, flax oil, wouldn't it be in the coconut, the olive, or the flax? Again, it gets down to eating the whole food in its unprocessed form. So instead of using processed, highly refined, toxic oils, use the whole plant food that it came from. That gives you the mouthfeel. Avocado's delicious. You can do a lot of desserts. You can do chocolate mousse with avocado, for example. With gluten, I am gluten-free by necessity, but even before I knew I needed to be, over 20 years ago, I always did everything gluten-free, because it seems that no matter where you go, there's always one person that is. So why not make it so that they can eat it? Nowadays, it's never been easier, because they actually make gluten-free flour. They make blends that are equal to substitution, like Bob's Red Mill, for example, where you can just use whatever you were going to do with white flour. Now it's in a gluten-free blend. There's so many things like almond flour, chickpea flour, things that either didn't exist before or we didn't know about. So the gluten-free really isn't the hard part, because there's so many grains that don't have gluten. Obviously wheat has gluten, barley, spelt, the trichotille, couscous. But think about all the grains, corn, rolled oats, rice, quinoa, teff, millet, amaranth, sorghum. There's probably more grains without gluten than grains with gluten. So the gluten part really isn't very difficult anymore for, or at least, well, it's not difficult for me. And what else did you ask? But yeah, so instead of oil, use fat. Instead of sugar, use fruit. And for dessert, I don't worry so much about salt. I know some people do that, but in savory cooking, instead of salt, there's so many wonderful herbs and spices that you can get now, and even salt-free blends that didn't exist even 5 years ago. So you just got to be willing.
And with regard to salt, so you do use some salt in your cooking?
So so here's what I do. People think I'm like SOS free, like Dr. Goldhammer. I'm O free, mostly oil free always. And I'm pretty much sugar free. There's one exception in my life because I love sushi and I can't find pickled ginger without it. But I don't cook with salt. But I have a salt shaker here. If somebody's eating here and they don't think it's salty enough, they can put it in. But with all these spices from local spicery, like bacon spice and pepperoni spice, and I don't miss the salt. I don't need the salt, but I have salt available. If any of you want to come over to our potluck Sunday, if you live in Northern California, please join my meetup, Healthy Living with Chef AJ. We do offer you salt. I just don't cook with it.
Okay, great. And what's your perspective on the use of artificial sweeteners in weight loss?
Worse. That is the biggest mistake in research. If you go Google this PubMed, Medscape, people that try to use artificial sweeteners to lose weight usually are heavier than people that even eat sugar. First of all, and I saw the last presentation by Kim Murphy. It's terrible for your gut microbiome, number one. And all the GI doctors, whether they're plant-based or not, will agree that all the fake sweeteners like aspartame, and even the ones that aren't fake but that are processed in 0 calories, like stevia, erythritol, which has a lot of bad effects now that Dr. Greger talks about, these are terrible for your gut microbiome. They're highly processed. They're not found in nature, but they're really worse for weight loss. And Dr. Furman has talked about this a lot, because you have taste buds on the tip of your tongue for sweet and salty. And so when you get a ripe berry, it's sweet. When you get a poisonous one, it's not. So then you know not to eat it. So that's a reward system on our tongue, sweet and salty. Well, the thing is when you get one of these 0 calorie sweeteners, whether it's aspartame or erythritol or any of the things that the sugar alcohols that end in OL or stevia, what happens is when your tongue tastes sweet, your brain gets really excited because that means calories are coming. But no calories come. You still get that insulin response. But what happens is these artificial and 0 calorie sweeteners are so much sweeter than sugar that you never are going to neuroadapt to these recipes. So they are far worse for you in terms of health and weight loss. It's one of the biggest mistakes people make. And to be honest, they're terrible tasting. The only reason people eat them is because they have this addictive quality, but they're horrible. I mean, give a diet soda to like a regular person. They're going to spit it out. It's toxic and it's just as addictive. So thumbs down all the way. As much as I'm not a fan of sugar, I would much rather see people eat sugar, maple syrup, agave than anything like stevia, erythritol, xylitol, any of those stuff. Thumbs down.
And if you can find monk fruit sweetener without erythritol, is that okay?
I don't know enough about that. So we'd have that would be a good question for Dr. Goldhammer. I don't use it because again, my rule of thumb is if I can't make it in my own kitchen, I don't use it. I can't make maple syrup or monk fruit. I can make date syrup. So for me, thumbs down. Sounds like it's expensive too. So nope.
Yep. All right. So with all of your interactions with the doctors that you've interviewed on your show, have you identified any nutritional advice that seems to be universal across the different doctors?
Well, yes, I have never, and I've done over probably 5,000 interviews now and 2,000 since the pandemic. I have never had one doctor or one guest on my show, whether they were vegan or not, that said eating processed food is a good idea. And even though the ones that weren't vegan or plant-based never said that eating processed and cured meats like bacon and deli meats and hot dogs was a good idea. So again, processed, that word comes up again. So I would say that's universal across the board, that we're not meant to eat processed food, whether it's animal products processed or this, it's hard being a 47-year vegan because they never really invite me at the Veg Fest because guess what they serve at Veg Fest? All the processed stuff. And then I do this and it's like, there's nothing for me to eat. And here I'm singing from the rooftops. eat whole plants and people are saying, well, it's going to help people transition. But does it really? Does it really? Because there was no transitional foods when I went vegan. I think it just keeps people addicted to sugar, fat, and salt and stuck in the pleasure trap. So the universal things I get from all my guests that are doctors and not, processed food, either eliminate completely or minimize. So we were saying, what's a cheat day? Well, maybe that's a cheat day. But again, how many cheat days are you having, you know?
Right, thank you. That's a great answer. So, what have you found to be the most effective ways to lose weight and keep it off? And I just want to say one thing. Last year you spoke about the Hannah yam, and I love them and I eat them regularly, and they're a great way to satiate yourself, and it's great for maintaining a healthy weight, I
Oh
found.
my God, I eat them every day. So I wrote this book, and the first year here, I actually gave the talk about it, but this is really the secret to weight loss. And it's called calorie density. I didn't invent it. Dr. McDougall wrote a book about it called the McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss. Dr. Dean Ornish wrote a book about it, or based in the principles of calorie density, eat more, weigh less. I learned a lot of this from Dr. Barbara Rolls, a researcher at Penn State University. When you really understand and implement the principles of calorie density, you can eat twice as much food and take in half as many calories. So understanding that zucchini is 67 calories per pound and oil is 4,000 calories per pound, what is going to fill you up more? You can have 2 pounds of zucchini grilled or air fried for the same amount of calories as a tablespoon of olive oil. When you really understand calorie density and also implement it, it's hard not to lose weight.
Great. That's awesome advice. So can you share an example of a daily meal plan that follows the guidelines that you outlined in The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss?
Yes. Well, okay. So I don't eat breakfast. That's because I don't eat breakfast. It's not about weight loss. I never ate breakfast my whole life, unless Coke Slurpee is considered a breakfast. I don't get hungry till about noon. And then I eat my gigantic Hannah yam, which might have weighed 2 pounds before roasting. And then I eat about a pound of broccoli. And actually, I started at eating soup before. I used to eat salad, but now I eat this soup that I make. It's the recipes on my YouTube channel. I learned about it when I was recently at True North. And it's just this blend of Yukon Gold potatoes and zucchini, 5 minutes in the pressure cooker. Oh my God. Soup is a secret to weight loss too, by the way, not clam chowder soup, but soup. Anytime you have water in the food, it creates bulk without calories. So soup is just, as a first course, is like such a secret to weight loss, but soup is also very satisfying. So that will be my lunch. My birthday was 2 weeks ago, and I'm being taken out to a SOS-free vegan restaurant tonight. So I'll be having probably a stir fry without oil. But like last night, we had deconstructed sushi bowls for dinner, which I'll be putting the recipe on my YouTube channel soon. We'll have, the night before, we had smoky butternut bisque with a whole grain and arugula on top. I make burgers. I love burgers, sweet potato burgers. And one of the secrets actually though is to batch cook. So if you like something, make more. Don't ever cook one potato. Cook a whole tray. Eat some, freeze some, refrigerate some, share some. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, rinse and repeat, any combination. And it's delicious. It's satisfying. It's affordable, and you'll save your health, the animals, and the planet.
And do you happen to know the name of that recipe for the Golden Yukon?
I know it by heart because I make it every 5 days. So it's okay. When you buy those little gold potatoes, at least where I live, the bag is exactly 1.5 pounds. And the zucchini at Trader Joe's is exactly 1.5 pounds, but you can weigh it. You put them in the pressure cooker with 2 cups of water, 5 minutes. When it's done, you take your immersion blender, and the Yukon Gold, it's so thick. And now I don't put any seasoning in, but you can put onion in it. You can put, I don't know, whatever you season it with, but it's so good. And they gave it to me at True North, and I fell in love with it, and I just make it every day because I love it. It's so good.
All right, that's awesome. So we've got a couple minutes left. So I'll ask you a couple of more questions if we have the time. So what are some of the common misconceptions about weight loss that you aim to correct in your book?
Oh, that you have to eat less. Because the opposite is true. If you're eating the right foods, you have to eat more, because if you are not satisfied, you can lose weight in any method. You can lose weight, cocaine, Ozempic, cutting your arm and leg off, eating less food. I mean, to me, this weighing and measuring nonsense is, it will work, but then you have to do it the rest of your life. When you understand the principles of calorie density, you can eat more and weigh less. So this idea, yes, of course, you have to create a calorie deficit, but you don't have to do that by limiting your food. You have to change your food. So instead of having oil and peanut butter and bread, you eat fruits and vegetables, whole grains and legumes. So you get much more food. You have bulk now, which bulk which is that feeling of fullness, activating your stretch receptors, creating satiety, instead of having little teeny tiny portions of this food. The problem is most Americans are eating the most calorically dense food and not eating it in tiny portions. There are people that can do that, but if you like to eat, this is the way to go, because I would much rather eat this food in abundance than have little tiny, you know, I don't know, whatever. So yeah, eliminating the oil is probably the biggest secret, because, you know, I believe what Dr. McDougall says, sugar and salt aren't deal breakers for most people. It's the fat in the diet, especially the oil. When people get rid of the oil from their cooking, from the processed food, from eating at other people's houses and restaurants, 4,000 calories a pound. It's not food. And I know you have a speaker every year that like sells it and loves it, but I don't think he's ever been overweight or a food addict, because, you know, the fat you eat is the fat you wear. I even have a sign. They couldn't print it if it wasn't true. So, and your next speaker is Dr. McDougall. So yeah, we evolved at a calorie density, according to Dr. Doug Lisle, of about 700 calories per pound, which means our ancestors ate some honey and animal products. We did not evolve eating oil and flour and alcohol and sugar. You just eat the food in its whole food form, then you'll be fine.
Great. And we're about to wrap up. And just how would people get in touch with you?
Okay, so my email is help@chefaj.com. My website is chefaj.com. And every day, I haven't missed a day since March 19th, 2020, I am on YouTube live in the chat, and you can talk to me if you live in Northern California. I have events all the time, and that's about it. I thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This was really, it was really enlightening and a pleasure to watch. So if we could unmute the audience so everyone can say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Mother Nature